Hello, good afternoon, wherever you are. Thanks for joining us. It is indeed a pleasure for me to be hosting this extended reality talk. And when I use the word extended reality, I'm talking also about virtual reality, augmented reality, and of course, mixed reality. And as we present our ideas, please remember to share what we have done in this session. I want to start off by asking each and everyone to introduce themselves at this point in time. Since Luke is first on the screen, I'll ask him to go ahead, and then Kathleen, and then Jacob, and of course, Francisca.
Hi, I'm Luke Bennett. I am a lecturer in the College of Education at Clemson University.
Hi, I'm Kathleen Bastedo, instructional designer at University of Central Florida, and I'm very interested in mixed reality, XR.
Hi, I'm Jacob Bates, and I'm the Tech Rangers team lead. Lead a team of part-time developers that create web applications and course content. And I am a VR enthusiast, in my personal life, but then also trying to make that part of my job.
Hi, I'm Francisca Yonekura, and I oversee the Learning Systems and Technology Group. I am always curious about how new technologies could be leveraged for either learning or to extend, not pun intended, our ability to function around this world a little more efficiently, if you will, while having fun.
Excellent. I love that. I'm Rohan Jowallah, senior instructional designer at UCF. I am a critic of VR. I love VR. I have done some work with Luke and everyone in this group as it relates to virtual reality and, of course, extended reality. And I want us to really have a free flow discussion this afternoon. And before moving on, I want us to really have a clear definition. When you see us use the word virtual reality, we might be talking about extended reality too, and augmented. So I'm going to ask Jacob to just highlight what are the differences and how do we compose them as we go throughout our conversation this afternoon. Over to you, Jacob.
Hey, thanks. So yeah, basically, the two ends of the spectrum here are reality, actual reality, and then virtual reality. So reality, obviously, everything is what we perceive since we were born. Virtual reality is a completely virtual world, completely made up world that doesn't exist in real life. And then in between those two are augmented reality and mixed reality or extended reality. So augmented reality is real life, but with some extra elements added onto it virtually. So for example, things like Pokemon Go, but yeah, those mobile games that add on some extra things to the real world. And then you've got mixed reality or extended reality that yes, you're adding some things onto the real world, but they are interactable objects, and the real world objects and the virtual objects kind of coexist together and are both used as input and output for the software, I guess. So it's not just a superficial thing or adding something in, it's actually integrating the real world with the virtual world.
Yes, and I'm happy that we're able to follow using the diagram that we used to explain this. And I'm sure others will be able to follow using the diagram. Now, I want to say thanks, Jacob, for that contextualization of the terms. And if we do go and we use augmented reality or virtual reality, we're really talking about the continuum as it relates to virtual reality. Now, our big topic or big question for this week is why extended reality? Why virtual reality? Why are we talking about virtual reality today? And I remember starting in 2016, let me start off, and remembering when I said to Luke, let's look at something else, and we started to dissect the stuff and we knew that something big was coming. We saw it. So I'm saying from that point in time, I had an idea. What are your thoughts? Why extended reality, virtual reality, augmented reality within today's context?
Well, I could go ahead and start. I mean, the reality of the world right now is that you can't always get out and go somewhere. Maybe even in your own town, you can't go to that place to interact with whatever that is or whatever. But you may not be able to travel to other parts of the world and experience archaeological sites and things like that that could be made into a virtual space that you could experience from home safely. And I think, to me, that's like the big thing that always sticks in my mind, of being able to experience things that you couldn't experience from home without virtual reality. And I think that applies even more so to our current situation in the world.
That's so true. Kathleen, what are your thoughts on that? Why, I saw you so excited when you were invited to this group. Why extended reality? Why is it?
Yeah, so I find that it can be used in two ways. Like, we had access to some virtual reality software. I can't remember the company, and they were showing how it is to be a person with some kind of disability. And one of them was macular degeneration. And I brought it to College of Nursing, and I had one of the professors who was teaching in another room would send a student in a time to try it out. And you'd see them like doing all this weird stuff, trying to look around where the spot is where you can't see. And they felt like they really could tell what their patients were going through, instead of just saying, this is what this disease is. It let them experience it in person. And I think that makes a huge difference when you're trying to treat people.
Okay, you're talking about empathy. I like that. And by the way, I must say, cool glasses, wherever you got that from, I want one, right? No.
I think you have it.
All right. Over to you, Francisco or Luke. What are your thoughts? Why virtual reality, extended reality?
So I'll go ahead. For me, it always takes an educational spin. I know, let me just backtrack. I talk about my son a lot because he's in that educational process right now at 11 years old, going through that, elementary education at this point, heading to middle school. And I know that I take him places so that he can experience things, because I know it enhances his learning. So like the other day, they were in his class, they were talking about Abraham Lincoln, and he had already been to Ford's Theater in DC where Lincoln got shot and seen that. And so when they talked about it, he knew what that looked like. He knew what that balcony looked like where Lincoln was. He had experienced it. He had been immersed in that. And there's something about being immersed in something that allows you to really understand it better than just reading it. It's one thing to go to the Grand Canyon and see it and experience how big it is and how deep it is and what it looks like. It's a completely different thing to just read about it in a book and go, oh, there's a picture of the Grand Canyon. A picture simply doesn't do it justice. And I think when it comes to educating students, if you can immerse them in an experience of something that you're talking about in the classroom, it connects that learning like nothing else. Everybody can't go everywhere, but it seems that when students can experience something, they are able to really connect that learning to somewhere they've been or something like that. And so for me, that's the why. It takes people to places and immerses them in something so that they can understand it in a way that they never could just by seeing a textbook or reading about it or watching a video on it.
Excellent. I like the connection here. Both Kathleen, Jacob, and yourself, of course, you've talked about the experience, and I'd love to go further into that. Francisco, over to you. Let's hear from you at this point in time. Why?
Thank you.
Reality?
Sure. Thank you. This is great. And perhaps what I'm about to say is a little bit different in the sense that I heard this is a good book ending, if you will, between what Jacob said and what Luke just said. I would like to pose to this group, perhaps if we could converse. One of the statements that was said was, the virtual reality is not necessarily a reality, it's a made up world. I would argue that reality happens in both areas. So whatever happens in virtual reality is as real as whatever happens in the physical world, right? I think these technologies evolving so beautifully now, where we need to be having a conversation about the fact that we're calling it extended reality. I think is a manifestation of we need not underestimate that what happens through the goggles or through now what it looks at perfectly immersive world. There are some folks that just reading the pages of a book immerses them into that particular world. Now, there's the sensory immersion that happens with the virtual reality goggles. And so I think for these technology to continue to evolve, right? To continue to evolve, these two words, I think, merits a little further discussion: reality and immersiveness. Like, what's the spectrum happening? And how can we start measuring? You know, there's the work of Valenson out of California about, the sense of presence in these worlds, right? And there's plenty of theories out there, in which kind of lets you study and understand how we humans, immerse ourselves in whatever experience we decide to involve ourselves. So I think extended reality to me is the beauty of emerging both and giving both the value that each brings for how we evolve as a human, the way we can contribute to the world in better ways, or we're so constantly moving forward, back and forth, and doing more and multitasking. So I think these new technologies are allowing us, or if properly done, will allow us to extend ourselves, if you will. And so, those are my thoughts.
Yeah, powerful, because as a matter of fact, I did write an article last week to do some publication on just a little short blog, and I focused on presence. That's why I'm smiling, because I know presence is going to take another level of development that we have not seen yet. And I say not seen yet because they're individuals studying the sensory and all the approaches that will enhance the next level of virtual reality, extended reality. So solid point. But what I get from it is that the experience, and it is moving towards a continuum of where we might say, is it real or not? There's a possibility, so I look at that. Wonderful thoughts. I wanted to explore something else. As everyone was speaking, I noticed over a period of time, if you study the history of VR, we have had some slowdown periods, right? We started in the 50s, they developed something, and all of a sudden nothing happened for the last 4 or 5 decades. My issue is, what are your thoughts? Why did this technology not move forward or was limited? Instructor, I am not a person who knows the back end of technology. As Jacob will know, I tell him I don't do the back end. But why do you think this technology did not advance to this point that we're saying we're ready for it?
Go ahead.
I'll take a go. And also not having an extreme technology background, so it's gonna go back to my time. I was probably in middle school, mid 80s sometime, late 80s, walking through the mall, and they had this virtual reality thing going on, and people were in these big, huge circles with big goggles on, and doing the things we see people in virtual reality do, flailing their hands everywhere. They were having a sword fight, and we could see it on the screen. The picture wasn't great. You could see what was going on a very basic level, but it was kind of tough to follow. At the same time, the machines that they had were huge, and so what I think is why it stalled for a while and you didn't hear about it, and then all of a sudden you did. I think advancements in technology in general, and mobile technology, the ability to get VR on your phone with Google Cardboard, all of a sudden people were able to start seeing, oh wow, this is super portable. And I think, and I can do it in my own home, and I can make my own choices and things like that. But I may not be connecting this well, so let me go ahead and connect it. So before you had these giant, huge machines, and now it's in everybody's hand right there with just a small purchase of some sort of headset, and you can get going in VR. It may not be as robust as some of the other systems that are phenomenal as well, but that gave it it began to be in everybody's hands at that point. There we go.
Yeah, and I'll, that you're spot on, Luke. It's definitely, it was a technological limitation. I've tried out headsets. I know Francisca has. We always go to ITSEC every year, which is a defense training, industry training conference. And they were always showing off the latest and greatest of like virtual reality or just head mounted displays, basically, whether they were recordings of reality or virtual reality or whatever. And there was always something lacking. They were heavy, the resolution was low. If they were wireless, the quality was really bad, the frame rate was bad, gave you headaches and nausea and all that. And I think it was really the development of the smartphone that was what made accessible VR of a reality. Um, the high resolution screens that cell phones use are used on like what Rohan just showed, like the Oculus Quest, those like all-in-one units, as well as the powerful processors that we get in smartphones are also used in those all-in-ones. But even just the displays are useful for the tethered VR headsets, because before we had those high resolution affordable displays, you just couldn't make anything with high enough fidelity to not give somebody a headache in VR.
Right, thanks for that. And I must say that Kathleen and myself went to the conference 2 years ago. No, Kathleen,
Mm.
what were your thoughts on it, Kathleen, based on the technology? Because I was really, really fascinated by it as it relates to VR. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, the nice thing about that conference is they have a variety of situations that you can see how it's being used, or it's being used in a group, or it's being used as an individual. And it is usually the latest technology. I think I went the year before, and I don't think it was as advanced as it was the year before, but I'm not sure because it's a big giant hall. It's hard
Yeah,
to get.
it is. It is. It is. Francisca, what are your thoughts regarding the offset of virtual reality at this point?
Yes, I am ambivalent still. I think for me, there's still the element of the it does not feel as natural to me. It is quite an evolution, like Jacob and I, as just earlier, we used to go to, or we still go to the conference. We also went to the Disney Quest when they used to have those big, head mounted pieces. And I kind of got a little bit dizzy with that one. It's a good thing they have the bars that you could hang on to. Um, why has it not taken off? I think there is still an element of not so natural, and the augmented reality cases that I've seen, I think has a great potential. It seems a little more, again, the juxtaposition of both the virtual and the physical world that makes, brings in the context together, I think. Will we be talking about virtual reality in the future? The jury's still out as we continue to, technology continue to evolve, and we continue to explore how to leverage these technologies. So yeah, that's currently my thought about where the technology is.
Excellent, excellent. With we're in the new technological revolution, and we're certainly moving. As I said to a group the other day, in 1973, we had an ex-slave watching the spaceship rather going up to the moon. And of course, he had come into United States as a young person enslaved, and now he was watching that. It shows you that technology has advanced so drastically over the last, I would say, 120 years. And I want us to focus regarding the sectors that have been pushing this technology. I am certainly, you all know, education is not part of that sector, right? It's the military, it's healthcare services, and so forth. My issue for you is, as we discuss and go further, why extended reality, virtual reality? Why is it now that educational institutions are now taking virtual reality, extended reality, as a serious movement going forward? Why?
Well, I guess I'll go ahead and address the elephant in the room, and I think that's cost is a huge part of it. So, I mean, these are now consumer, like you can get a consumer grade device that rivals the hardware that the military would purchase, 5 years ago or 10 years ago or whatever. It's the cost has gone down quite a bit. The availability is really high. And those practical reasons, immediately come to mind when you ask that question. But I'll let others talk more about the pedagogical aspects of it, possibly.
I can jump in with another one too. Cost, yes, although it has come down. There's the potential again of haves and have-nots, that gap, right? Second, I don't think I have seen too many good examples yet of the social aspect that is much needed in for teaching and learning purposes beyond the gaming aspect. I think some of the earlier immersive worlds, virtual worlds, instances like OpenSim and Second Life, that's what makes them so strong and was widely adopted. And I think they're still, not think, they are still very strong in their communities that kept on going with those technologies. With the VR, the headsets have evolved. We can, like you all said, use it in the mobile devices. However, I think we need more in terms of how do we facilitate that social interaction between the parties.
Anyone else?
Well, I wanted to talk about the social interaction part of it. So the technology is there to do those social interactions. But yeah, you're right. I haven't seen like any, or I haven't seen any great examples of getting that social interaction between students, between the faculty member and the teacher and the students. But there are some examples of like VR chat is one of them. Rec Room is another example of like commercial applications that do provide that like chat room and team building and playing together kind of environment that I think would be very helpful in that educational setting.
Yeah, I'm also looking at spatial and playing around with it because I can invite others, but I do not have anyone to invite. So at this point in time, I'm just playing around, moving objects. So I think as we look forward, and again, the issue of presence, Francisca, is going to play a vital role in these sort of social interactions. Anyone else would like to touch on that? Because I think it's important to look at higher education within this context.
I think it is, as you mentioned, yes, universities are taking it seriously, and educational institutions in general are taking VR seriously at this point, where they may not have before for all of the reasons mentioned. But I think if you go department to department, some departments, depending on their content, are going to be using VR much more than others, and some not at all. I still think we're at the very beginning stages of it because people are not sure what to do with it. I don't know that if you were to walk around, I don't know that you'd be seeing it used all over the place at any educational institution. It would just be small spots here and there with people who are highly interested, or content where being immersed to that level means something as far as training goes. For example, there are areas where the connection is obvious, and that's where you're going to see the pockets of it being used more so than in other places. And in some content areas, it's simply exploratory, and in others, I would bet you could walk through some departments at any university, the same department. So I don't know. My thought is like maybe.
You're spot on, because I remember you talking at the presentation, and you stated that VR kind of reduces the cost, so people can practice in a safe environment without taking on that risk. So we have to be cognizant of these things. And when I look at higher,
it doesn't obviously connect with other content areas, so you could go to those departments and not see it at all ever at any university.
Which in a sense, it kind of appeases me, because, just because a tool is cool doesn't mean you should be using it, right? And so people need to be careful about, when to use it for what purpose,
So why VR? So therefore, if you ask yourself the question, you need to find out if it's relevant to my subject area, and if it's relevant to creating that interaction that would lead to sound learning within that context. These are questions we have to make connection with and talk about the balance, as Luke and I have always discussed, between pedagogy and technology.